It just means that in a if you're trying to have a discussion, in my opinion, it's not going to go well because, like I said, you are very set in what you believe.
Yeah, any discussion where either party is unable to move is a waste of time.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. Is that in part of his in being my autistic
Many
self,
deals for a
I
friend
know
of the
when I
Grummles.
have a
Not
fact,
you.
it is hard to change. It will eventually change, but not easily.
Have you ever learned about Bayes' theorem?
I have no idea what that is, so no.
Okay, so this is something that,
Good fortune to our
again, I
friends.
don't know you, but it's something, if it's a bit technical, and so it's not for everybody, but it's something you might want to investigate because from what you're describing, I think it might be helpful. So Bayes' theorem is like, warning, this is going to get like super nerdy. It's um, it's the mathematical representation of how evidence-based reasoning works. And the point of it is that um, it makes sure that you're being honest about your probabilities. Um, when when people reason, they typically
Pesky gulls have been getting
ignore
too
a
close
lot of
to the opal
factors that
crag.
play into
Thin
how
out their
probabilities
numbers
play out.
and make them think
So,
twice about bothering our
um,
equipment.
how can I put this? We tend to look for evidence that confirms what we already believe, and we don't look at whether that evidence is also consistent with what the other person believes, right? So when it confirms what we already believe, when it's consistent with what we already believe, we go, aha, see, that's evidence that what I believe is true. But if it's consistent with what the other person believes, it's not evidence of anything. Like it's a
It
wash.
self nullifies.
Right. So what Bayes' theorem does is it basically says that the evidence, or it treats the idea that you're talking about, the theory or the hypothesis that you're discussing. It says, okay, the probability of that hypothesis, we're going to start with a just off the cuff, reasonable guess of what you think whether it sounds plausible or not. So if somebody says that the moon is made of cheese, you're going to start with a super low, like 1 in a million probability, right? Like something that's just astronomically low, because come on, what are the odds?
Yeah.
And
What kind of cheese?
right. And so what Bayes' theorem does is it starts you, like, the first thing you have to do is you have to take the hypothesis in question and assign it a value based on that, like, prior probability is what they call it, the prior, which is just how plausible is this in the first place. And then it looks at each piece of evidence independently. Like, how much does this piece of evidence move your confidence in the conclusion based on everything else we know so far? And if a piece of evidence is only consistent with your hypothesis,
That
it'll
should
move it a
keep them
lot.
at bay
If it's
for now.
consistent with every
Eating
other
all that is
hypothesis,
not good
it
for
won't move
them
it at all.
anyway.
Right? So it's this whole mathematical process, but it doesn't have to be mathematical. Once you've learned about it, it just teaches you to focus on um, paying attention to how evidence is perceived by conflicting or contrary hypotheses, and it goes a long way to helping you stay open-minded, even when you're 95% confident that something's true. You can look at a piece of evidence and go, yeah, okay, that actually reduces my confidence in my belief to 90% or whatever. It puts you in this mindset of treating every explanation as possible and just rating it as a percentage and moving it up or down instead of just picking a place and defending it dogmatically. Like, okay, well, I've chosen that this is what I believe, so I need to fend off any evidence that conflicts with that. No, you can say, this is what I currently believe because the evidence favors it, but I'm totally open to anything that's going to challenge it. But because I'm so confident because of X, Y, and Z, it's going to take a lot to move me, back down to 50%. So it's a really, really useful tool, even if you don't use it mathematically, just to put yourself in a mindset that's more.
Yeah,
I think it's healthier, especially for topics where people tend to dig
get
in.
heated. Yeah, and I get what you're saying on it, because there have been times I used to be, the opposite political party, till I realized that that was me listening to one source of knowledge and news, and it's like Greybog has poked at me and said, "Yeah, you've got one news source."
Right,
I
that's
primarily
actually
listen to TikTok and people on there, and I realize it's not one source; it's one bubble.
Yeah, like social media has really made it difficult for people to evaluate stories. I know I can never remember the name of it, but there's a subscription that I'm always tempted by. I'm poor, so I can't afford it right now. But there's a subscription service that actually evaluates news.
Ground news.
Oh, that sounds right. Yeah.
Ground news. I subscribe to it because I like to know the bias of my information.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going for. Yes, thank you. Ground news. That's the one. Because yeah, it just, I want to know, like, I want some objective measure of what sources of information I am prioritizing. Like, that's something that I won't be able to recognize myself without a robot looking over my shoulder going, you always click on these ones, and once you've done that, the evil robots that are feeding you the news, they're just going to happily feed you the stuff that leans the same way and never give you the information that the other side is getting. And some of it's good and some of it's not, but like, if you don't even see it, how can you evaluate it? Ground news.
Yeah.
I need to, yeah.
And that's
I
the
can
thing.
send URLs. I get credit if people will sign up with my link.
I mean, as soon as my finances are like not fucked, it's one of the things I intend to sign up for. So like, hopefully I remember, and I'll hit you up so that you can do that. Because yeah, I'm super interested in
honey
that.
production halts,
As somebody who again is obsessed with Bayes' theorem and like balanced analysis of evidence. Like that's like my whole shtick. So it really, yeah, it's frustrating when I log on to, Google and I'm like, well, what's the news today? Yeah, okay, so it's just gonna feed me the stuff that is in line with what's interested me before. How helpful.
And that's part of the thing, is that there is always another side. The question is, is that side going to move that your percentage, like you said, over any? Does it offer anything that you feel could be, actual news?
Well, it has to be a fact, right? And so that part of the difficulty is evaluating sources of information. And too often news sources are not even secondhand or third hand, but like sixth hand, and you really need to figure out where's this information coming from. And just like in a court where somebody saying, hey, I heard so-and-so did this, well, that's not really very valuable information. Right? Like, okay, so you remember that you heard somebody saying that. How well were you listening at the time? You don't know. Like, our memories are shit. Everybody's memories are just a catastrophe of cognitive biases that just just like it's like it's like your own personal little holodeck where you get to like tell the stories of things that happen to you, but like ask the computer to make it more favorable to the things that you like, and so you think back and you remember and you're like, okay, yeah, that's exactly how I remember it. You're right, brain. I was the good guy. Like
Yeah.
that's
I
how
mean, it's the
memories
old
work.
adage: every bad guy is a good guy in his story.
Oh man, yeah.
Which
Who's
is
it?
what I do in my D&D games. Like, I specifically put villains in against my party. The villain thinks they're doing the best thing in the world.
That's the best written character. I actually did the flip side of that. My favorite campaign I ever ran was one where over the course of the campaign the players realized that, oh shit, the people who hired us are kind of the bad guys. Like everything we've done has been a disaster. It's actually advanced the schemes of the terrible people, and the way it factored, like I just played into all the stereotypes in D&D of you know, orcs and goblins and whatever. So basically what was happening is there was a human who'd taken over a goblin tribe and was
With your help, we can calm
was
them
attacking
down
a bunch of human
and guide
settlements.
them
So of
back
course
to their
the heroes had to
honey-making
ride off
duties.
to defeat them. But it turns out the reason they were doing that is that the humans in the area had been capturing and enslaving goblins and putting them into forced labor for their farms. So like it was this like awful slavery situation. And once the players realized it was like, oh good god, like what do we
Yeah.
do? I love shit like that. It's great.
It's one thing if it's like, oh, everybody's bad, but who's the worst?
Those stories are not realistic, let alone interesting. Like that's, I mean, it's why people. Okay, so initially everybody loved Game of Thrones because it was so gray and everybody was like had their own story. But eventually you kind of get to a point where it's just like, oh, they're all bad. Like that's less interesting because you have very few people to cheer for.
Well,
But
that's kind of Walking Dead why I think it was so fun.
yeah,
Like the main characters of that are pretty much people saw them as good, and then like there's a lot of bad shit they do to stay
yeah.
alive.
Over time they get worse and worse and worse. Yeah.
And
Or
it's like,
And we all
yeah,
don't
you know,
realize.
I get it. It's their world that they live in, and things are horrible. But
and if the
they're not
writing's
good
good,
people either.
if the writing's good though, that's your response. Is like, I get it. Like in that situation, it's easy to forgive them for what they're doing, but like because you, the viewer, live in a different situation, you still have that like, yeah, but I don't like it. Like I don't like it. It's not good.
Elune adore. Good luck,
100%.
friend.
And that's where I'm like, okay. Everyone can see the road is paved with, with good intentions, but very few.
I'm not
people,
even sure that's true anymore. But anyway.
Yeah, but it's still a situation of, yeah, it may be paved with it, but we ain't looking. How many people aren't caring to look, aren't caring to try?
I just got a very cool warband drop. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, that's good interruption.
You are acknowledged.
An actually interesting conversation with something so myopic, but rot fist flesh carver, very cool. I'll link it in guild if you guys are online. But
Can you link it to the malicious revenge?
oh sure. Are you not in Malice?
I'm not in Malice. No.
Okay, let me see if I can do. Oh yeah, I'm in malicious on this guy.
I probably should get this character into malicious.
Well, it's a situation where I want to be part here, but I'm not ready to do any server hopping or any guild hopping.
Oh, that's fair. You gotta wait until you're
That is
settled
nice.
in and ready. Isn't that thing cool?
It's good for any green mobs.
It's good for your yeah. I guess
I have an extended
it's a
supply
one-hand
of
sword,
goods
so I guess
for outlanders.
be good for
I have calibrated
your
my
frosty
prices
K's or
to be
something.
reasonable.
Oh yeah.
Which reminds me, I still need to level my DK. I
Dangerous.
finally settled, after
Oh!
all these years, Lyndon, I finally found
You've
a DK
arrived
that I
just
don't
in
hate.
time.
Okay, I'm gonna have to do the stay a while and listen. Hang
Don't
on.
assume victory.
I just found
Know your
somebody
target.
in the city. Somebody in a wheelchair.
Oh,
There is much
isn't
left
that
to do.
Yes. I don't know people's spoilers, so I'm not saying who.
oh god, yeah. I
It
think we're
occurs
all-
to me that I never got the
Well, there,
chance
yeah,
to
fair.
properly thank you, champion. Were it
Oh,
not for
here,
your
I
efforts,
just remembered you were
Dalaran could have proven
streaming.
to be an
Sorry.
even greater tragedy than it was.
We thought we had lost you, Khadgar.
I am babbling
How
about
did you
phase theorem.
survive?
The Dark Heart was created not to destroy, but to capture and harness all manner of power. When I felt what it was doing to me, I transmuted myself into pure arcane energy.
And allowed yourself to be trapped within the Dark Heart.
Yes, until you freed me.
That was a risky move, trusting me to finish the fight against Xalatath.
I knew you would do whatever it took
On
to
that
defeat her.
topic, though, another
Just like all those years ago,
recommendation I
when we charged
throw out to
through the
anyone who will
dark
listen is
portal
a book
and
by
closed it
Julia
behind us
Galef
to
called
save
The
our
Scout
world.
Mindset. It's so
Both
good.
then and
So
now,
good.
placing my faith in you was never any risk at all.
Back on that social media thing. The
That
big
transmutation spell,
problem with
however,
it is they have algorithms.
that was
so
not
you
without
interacted with
consequences.
This, you liked you seem to watch more of this.
You
so we're
know,
going to show you more of that,
Kerdrin
which
keeps
typically
saying I should
gets you
just
that
ride a
bubble
griffin around.
Yeah,
that,
it and
That
it's not like
seems
you know that
terribly
that's happening,
inconvenient,
right? Like
if you ask me.
you just see
I
stuff
much
and click
prefer
on it.
this
You don't know
chair.
that they're not.
that
There's
be
all this
because
interesting
Archmage
and
Modera
important stuff they're
designed it
not
for you
showing you.
herself?
That's the problem.
Why,
There's not
Hilaria?
that. Yeah.
Whatever are
yeah,
you
one of
implying?
my friends, I'm like, look, the reason
Only
you
that
and I
you
have
and
two different
Terralion are
TikToks,
so
like I see
very
different videos
alike.
than you.
Bold in
It's-
battle, shy
We
in
have,
matters of
we
the
clearly
heart.
are interacting with different things than
And you are still
Yeah.
the same old Hilaria, I see.
It's like
That I am,
it would almost be like,
Khadgar.
let's switch
Void
phones for
or no
an hour
void.
and look at each other's TikToks and see what happens. But like once they've done their work on you, you get into this mindset of, well, anything that is coming from the other side is all lies and bullshit. So like
Yeah.
it's very easy to dismiss it as misinformation. It's like, well, how do you know it's misinformation? Have you looked into it? Have you looked into what the sources of that information are? Have you read the quotes and found out whether they were actually said? Like, no, like people don't do that. They just, I'm uncomfortable with this, so I'm gonna put it in the misinformation bin and not pay attention to it.
which is why I love the ground news, is because they have a factuality score. And,
Oh man, I so want that subscription.
and if let's say a far left source is and a far right source, they're both writing about the same thing. It's just I read them both, and it's fascinating the differences
Mhm.
between on the
Even-
same thing.
Even if you don't just look at the text, but the one that really like the first thing I remember noticing in this vein was this will be Canadian politics, so like you won't I'm not gonna even bother giving names, but anyway, just the point is like I noticed, God, like 25 years ago, that news stories about the same subject from different newspapers would have very different photographs of the prime minister or premier, one which would be flattering and one which would be like ugly or whatever. And it's just like, it's so obviously manipulative.
Well, I mean, it's just like when you have a local team, arrested on da-da-da-da-da. If it's someone they want to promote as good, they show a nice picture. But
Yeah,
if
exactly
it's
the
not someone they want to show good, they show the mugshot.
And the whole topic of biases and overcoming biases and whatever it's so much more complicated than just recognize it and try not to do it. It's actually, I mean, statisticians have to get involved because when there are global or if not global, at least just cultural level biases that in fact, I guess, most people, then a perfectly balanced description will actually end up being biased in the reader's mind, right? And how do you deal with that? Like that is such a wild philosophical question. I don't know the answer to. Like, so should you tweak it in the other direction by enough to overwhelm the bias? Because that's just biased reporting, which is also bad. So what do you do? Like, how do you overcome that?
Yeah,
like
it's one of those you really don't have an easy way to overcome.
Do you intend
no, it's just kind of
idle
gross
all day?
and frustrating. I don't like it.
Stomping shoes? Interesting.
So for those curious, the premium, which lets you do as much reading as you want, and they'll check it all, is $30 a year.
Wait, it's per year?
Yeah.
I thought it was per month. Oh shit!
$249 a month.
Yeah,
the
I'm gonna
Pro,
send you
which
send me a
you,
thing. I'll sign up for it right away. That's awesome.
Yeah, when I saw how cheap it was, I was like, going, sure, $30 for a year. I'm game.
I heard about
I'll
it
try
on
it
a
out for a year.
podcast, and I guess I wasn't listening hard enough. That's awesome.
Can you give me the link? I'll throw it into our live stream as well.
Give me a second.
It's so great.
Since I'm still here and chatting, I decided to do the Chromie thing.
Careful! The totem's power will drain whenever you take a step.
Because might help my shaman level a little.
All good. I'll keep going on my delve.
Black Friday, get 50% off gifts.
You got to dodge!
That doesn't help you all, but
Helps are coming.
Oh man.
Well, that's a service I've been meaning to sign up for over a year now. But yeah, I assumed it was much more
$30
expensive.
a month? Nope.
Yeah,
I would not be paying for that.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I mean, sometimes they go for these models where they're like, okay, we're not going to get very many subscribers, but we'll get the whales to, support it. And man, yeah, that's totally worth it, because I spend so much time consuming news in this like hyper skeptical, like I don't know what to make of this way, that I find very frustrating. I kind of like don't believe anything until I've read it from multiple kind of hostile sources.
All right, we'll do it this way. So just like you don't get a link. I have to send it via like it's an email thing.
Oh, okay. I'll PM you.
Which is great and all. It does.
Yeah, I get it. It's annoying. Also, I just sent you a bunch of mining shit.
Okay, your email address is 123@gmail.com. That's fascinating.
How could you possibly think it was okay to say that live? Your email address is the same as the combination on my luggage.
I love
Alright.
that movie's quotes and stuff.
That movie is, God, it's so good.
And it's one of those where it's hard to do a movie like that and not, let somebody control it, because he was good at doing those movies and having a message. Even if it was completely funny.
You might be going a little far in saying he had a message. I mean, I think Mel Brooks' primary goal was always just, like, if it's funny, I'll do it. Like, I don't care.
No, that's what I'm saying. It was
That guy
funny,
didn't
but
give a shit.
he did. I was watching Blazing Saddles a couple months back, and I feel he did have some of a message
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
on things. It's like, it may be in others that it's funny and silly, but he knew how to take the idea. I think I'm trying to say the most, and make the fun. Put the silly in it so that you understood exactly where it came from and what you were doing. Like the John Hurt scene. Hello, my baby. Hello. It's like, come on.
Mel Brooks is awesome.
If someone's like, hey, is someone willing to answer a question? I'm like, I mean, what question?
Yeah, like that question is open-ended.
Technically, I just did.
Yes, what do you want?
Like, what a weird way to... Why not just ask the question and see if anyone is willing, like, almost sounds like, if I ask the question, there will be all these people going, I know the answer, but I'm not fucking answering that. Like,
I mean, there is some of that.
And then he wants to know about the timeline. And as I pointed out, I was like, are you talking about like for the Mythic Plus portals? Or are you talking like the story behind the Bronze Flight and them controlling the time? Like, which aspect of the game are you talking about here?
are you asking a story question or a mechanics question?
Yeah.
Because, that was a keyboard turn. So this is not as easy as I had hoped, but I've died once, but that's because I overpulled.
Here's your take of the spoils.
What's that? Run answer.
Good answer. Because story-wise, we could be here all night talking.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. As soon as time travel gets involved, the answer is, it's magic. Looking at you, Star Trek.
Every story system Like, everyone does it.
I just recently watched the DS9 episode where O'Brien was being flung forward 5 hours in time, and
Excuse me.
there's this great throwaway line where the two O'Briens look at each other and just say, "I hate temporal mechanics," which is just like a nod to the viewer, like, "Yeah, we know this doesn't make sense." It's like, thanks, writers. Thanks.
I mean, I look at like any time. If you're going to do time travel, you got to have it make some logical sense with itself, and then
Fantastic!
go from there.
That's more like it.